Hey, podcast listeners. Tired of ads barging into your favorite news podcast? Good news. With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. Stay up to date on everything newsworthy by downloading the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free news. That's amazon.com/ad-free news to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
The mighty and resilient Merrimack River, carving through the communities of our great region. My name is Linda Lorden, proud president of Merrimack County Savings Bank. And like the river that serves as our namesake, we're a constant yet ever-changing presence. Because to us, it's bigger than banking. It's about powering communities and putting people first. It's about knowing where you came from and where you're going. That's Merrimack style. Visit us at themerrimack.com.
What's gone so wrong that someone like you would draw so much venom and hatred from people?
Our society encourages people to be at their lowest point instead of encouraging people to try to succeed, which is the only thing that makes people happy, is they feel good about themselves.
Well, welcome to Fill in the Blanks. You're going to be glad you're here today because I'm talking to Elizabeth Pipko, one of the most interesting people you're going to add to your repertoire. She is a multifaceted force, and I don't use force casually in today's world. Born and raised in New York City, she is the daughter of Jewish immigrants from the former Soviet Union. Now, this is a background that has profoundly shaped her life's work, as well as her values. She made her first mark in the modeling world, gracing the pages of top magazines like Maxim and Vanity Fair Italia, but her achievements extend far beyond the runway. As a passionate pro-Israel advocate, she has spent years on the front lines in the fight against anti-Semitism, and I am so anxious to talk to her about all of that. At 21 years old, she joined Donald J. Trump's successful presidential campaign as a staffer, and she is currently serving as the national spokeswoman for the Republican National Committee. She was named to the Alminer Journal's 100 list of the most influential Jewish people worldwide in 2023, and you're going to understand why when we start talking here in just a minute. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
You have had an interesting life, to say the least.
I think so.
I have a feeling it's just the interesting parts are just getting started. I have a sneaking suspicion.
I hope so.
How did you wind up as the national spokeswoman for the Republican National Committee? How did that get on your path?
Okay, so it's a very long story.
That's okay.
So we'll start from the very beginning. I was born and raised, I think you mentioned, in New York City. So I knew who Donald Trump was because I was just someone who grew up in New York. I lived a few blocks from Trump Tower. So Trump Tower was the place that my babysitter took me as a little girl when it was raining outside and we had nowhere else to go. I was also a competitive figure skater for a good chunk of my life and was supposed to go to the Olympics, but that's another story. But I started figure skating because Donald Trump operated Wallman Rink in Central Park, and that's where I began as a little girl. So that's
Right.
what I knew of Donald Trump. So when he announced that he was running for president in 2016, it was actually right after I had injured my ankle pretty badly, lost my dream, and was just like a very depressed young adult, didn't know what my future held. My little brother, who was the smartest, greatest person on the planet, told me Donald Trump was going to be president. And if I wanted to get my life on track, I should start watching his videos and take some inspiration from him. So that's what I did. We volunteered together for his campaign, I think twice or three times. And the athlete in me came out and I said, I want more. I sent a letter to the director of the data department on the campaign. I begged an intern to bring that letter to him. He hired me 2 days later. I said I would not take the job without my little brother because he goes with me everywhere. He brought on my little brother. We won that election, obviously. On that campaign, I met my husband. After that, my husband and my brother stayed involved in politics. I actually went back to normal life. I wanted to graduate college. I wanted to get my master's. I wanted to go back to modeling and all these things. And then in the process, I ended up doing some media commentary, a little bit on anti-Semitism, issues related to Israel, and then a little bit to do with politics, just because that's become what all people want to talk about now that Donald Trump is the man that he is. So that's what happened. And then I ended up kind of in and out of politics over the course of 2016 through 2024. And then when the RNC changed leadership, when Laura Trump and Michael Whatley kind of took over the RNC, I spoke with the family, the Trump family, and they thought it might be a good idea. I will do anything for this country. And as a daughter of immigrants, when you're offered a platform like that, you don't say no.
Of course.
So I took the job, and now I'm the national spokeswoman for the Republican Party.
And what does that entail? What do you spend most of your time doing in that role?
I get screamed at on TV a lot.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to sit with people like you. So that part's been really special. A lot of work on the media front, the communications aspect of things, that's really important. I work very closely with Laura Trump. Right now, we're campaigning around the country, so I'm in a different state almost every single day, meeting people. But a lot of messaging, communications focus in my role, but also obviously being in media, on podcasts, radio, TV, 15 million times a day, getting screamed at through election day.
This has been a contentious campaign, to say the least. Donald Trump's had to run against different opponents, which is really unusual. He ran against and debated one, and then they replaced that one, ran another one in. He's run against and campaigned against that, which is the first time I've ever seen that. I mean, it may have happened another time, but
Right.
it's unusual. When you're in the role of comms and getting the message out, do you participate in what that message should be?
Yeah. I think in general, Donald Trump is his own kind of candidate, based on what I know, because all I know is Donald Trump, but based on what I know from politics aside, from him, most politicians are very focused on the staff around them, on the communications experts around him. Donald Trump is more focused on his own gut instinct. He's very good at kind of relating, I think, to people, knowing what they're going to like, dislike, what they're going to want to hear from him. So a lot of the messaging, honestly, people don't realize it, really comes from him. He's number one in charge when it comes to our strategy. But obviously, I'm involved in a lot of the conversations that the team has as well.
Since 2016, when you were a staffer there, you've been to school, you've been in politics, you've also been in the modeling world. You worked with the Wilhelmina Agency, which is, of course, one of, if not the top agency in the world. That doesn't seem like a very common mix. That doesn't run parallel to the
Right.
political arena that you've been in. How has that worked out?
I think pretty well. I always say the best preparation you could have from politics is modeling, I think. It's the only time people are going to be almost equally as evil as they would be to you in politics. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a good preparation. But look, when you're born and raised in New York City and you have everything around you and your parents encourage you to fight for every dream that you have, the world really is, that's the limit, the world. So I want everything and more. And I have found, as difficult as it can be, because a lot of people obviously want to stop you, if you work harder than anyone in the room and you're nice to people, usually you have a chance to make it in all the industries that you want.
Yeah. Are you a Republican?
I'd say I am right now. I'd say I have, a few days to save this country, and my choices are Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. And I am more than in with Donald Trump, knowing he's the only chance that our country has, and that makes me a Republican.
And why do you say that? Why do you say he's the only choice this country has?
When it's a binary choice, you have to, look at the pros and cons of both sides. Kamala Harris has been in the White House in one way or another, obviously, for 4 years. And I think things have taken such a horrible turn. You can compare that to what we had under Donald Trump. Most people, before Kamala Harris became the nominee, most people agreed when you polled the average American that life was better under Donald Trump, right? The chaos around the world is atrocious. I still have nightmares about the footage I saw from October 7th. I always say if October 7th didn't happen, I probably wouldn't have taken this job, because I think that day truly changed me as a person. But I don't believe a lot of the horrible things that have happened over the last 4 years would have happened if Donald Trump was president. And I believe, based on the trajectory that we're on, if we don't make a change, we're in deep trouble.
Hey everybody, Dr. Phil here. Could the U.S. dollar be on the precipice of collapse? 19% of Americans 65 and older are still working. That's double from 35 years ago. Some people say that's something our elected leaders should be fixing. So what do? Well, I can tell you what I'm doing. I'm turning to physical gold and silver, and I encourage you to do the same thing right now. Preserve Gold is the only company I trust and recommend to my own friends and family, and you can trust them too. Today, they're giving away a free precious metals guide that contains essential information on how to help protect your accounts. Just text Dr. Phil to 50505. As an exclusive offer for my friends, in addition to their free guide, you can also get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil, Phil, to 50505 to claim this exclusive offer from Preserve Gold today. How did October 7th affect you? I know that may seem like an obvious question with you being a Jewish American or an American Jew, however you want to state that, but I've talked to so many, some from Israel, some from here, and it affected everybody different, all of them painfully, but I'm curious how it affected you.
Yeah, no, it's a good question because as an American, I think a lot of people were surprised by how a lot of people were affected because obviously this happened overseas, right? I don't think enough people understand why a lot of Jewish people in America and around the world were affected the way that we have been. I would say October 7th negatively impacted me, but I think the response to it might have been even worse. On October 7th, I realized that as a Jew, I'm not invincible. I think I always thought that Jewish people were because we've overcome so much. And I thought that the worst was behind us, which was pretty naive of me. My grandfather used to warn me that the Holocaust was not the end and to keep my guard up and to know that the world is out to get us. And I thought he was a crazy person. And now I know that he was right. So that was a part of it. October 7th, I watched a lot of the footage and I realized what was happening to what could have been me, right? I could have been at that festival in Israel, tortured and, God forbid, raped, kidnapped, murdered, the way that others were who look like me and talk like me and share a Jewish background, which is the only reason, of course, that they were taken and killed. But I think the response to October 7th might have affected me even more because I expected to wake up and have the whole world on our side. And instead I saw the opposite, right? I looked out my window in New York City. I remember looking out a few months ago and there are people walking the streets with Hamas flags. There are people with signs that say burn the Jews, gas the Jews, put the Jews back in the oven, wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And they're marching with the flags of terrorist groups, one of which attacked New York City when I was a young child, obviously. And I just assumed that that would never happen. And I realized after October 7th, not only could October 7th happen again, not only am I in danger all the time because of how much hatred exists for Jewish people, but I'm not as safe in America as I thought that I was.
How do you unpack that? I've got my own theories about that, and I've spoken out about it quite loudly and quite clearly about my views about what is happening on campuses in America. I never thought I would see this in my lifetime. I mean, I've actually had translated some of the rhetoric from the Nazi youth camps. And some of the things that I've seen and heard on America's most elite campuses is right up there with what was being heard at the time, is right up there with what I'm hearing from Hamas. And I'm hearing it on America's most elite campuses and watching administrators just give a blank stare. Why do you think there is such an upturn in anti-Semitism, in hate crimes towards Jews on American soil? And we'll talk broader than that in a minute, but why do you think that's happening? Why do you think there's that anti-Semitism?
So I think things have changed now because beforehand, anti-Semitism was anti-Semitism, but our relationship with Israel was kind of agreed upon in the country. Now, I think there's a good chunk of people, those my age and younger, some in the Democrat Party, some in the Republican Party even, though less, that view Israel differently. And I think that has made anti-Semitism an even bigger problem because they think that there's some kind of separation between Zionism and Jewish people, which 96 probably, if not more, percent of Jews believe the state of Israel should exist. I think that's made things worse, number one. Number two, it's interesting that you mentioned it's almost worse in the more elite institutions, right? I hold degrees from Harvard and UPenn, which I used to have above my desk on the wall, and now I no longer want to look at them, even though I owe them quite a bit of money still. But I used to have that on the wall, and I was so proud, and I have now learned my lesson. But it seems like there's something taking over America, and that's why this is happening. It's not some newfound hatred for Jewish people. There's a hatred for America as well, right? When they're burning Israeli flags at these rallies, they're also burning American flags.
Right.
So I wouldn't say it's just anti-Semitism is on the rise. And that's why people have always said, generation after generation, anti-Semitism doesn't arrive on its own. It's usually a symbol of a serious problem in a society. And I think that's what we're facing right now. It's kind of showing itself in a hatred for Jewish people. But it's a much bigger problem that we're facing in America, especially with the younger generation. It has nothing to do with Jewish people. We're just the scapegoat, because we always are. Israel's a very easy scapegoat. The war obviously made that even easier. But I think it's a much deeper American problem than just, the rise of anti-Semitism.
And what is the problem? You said it's a deeper American problem. What is the problem?
We are very fractured, right? We are very divided as a country. I don't know. I've only been on this earth for 29 years, but I don't think things have gotten better. I think after Donald Trump announced in 2015 and the political, let's say, climate in our country got as bad as it did, nor towards the election, I'd say in 16, I thought it would get better. After he won, he was president. That's it. And it only got worse and worse and worse. So number one, we're just fractured in general. People hate their neighbor. You used to be able, I remember my parents would have guests over every night and they would debate politics and then continue on with their dinner like nothing happened. No one does that anymore, right? If you vote for Kamala Harris in one state or Donald Trump in another state, you are the bad guy, depending on who you ask. So when you're fractured, number one, people always look for a scapegoat. So the Jewish people become the answer to our problems. Number two, I think people have stopped working. I think people have stopped trying. I think people have stopped having any faith in anything bigger than themselves. I think people don't have a lot of faith in the country, a lot of pride in the country. I mean, I really do think we are more fractured than people realize. And I think what we saw since October 7th on our college campuses, that's something people didn't realize was happening, right? It takes apparently a terrorist attack in Israel and the war to start for people to realize their own kids are apparently feeling some kind of connection to terrorist groups overseas. So I don't think people realized what was happening on our college campuses and how bad it was. But I do think things are getting worse and only going to continue to get worse because these are our future leaders, right? And they clearly are suffering more than they realize or we ever realize.
And what year did you graduate Harvard?
I was very late because my life was a mess like 4 years ago. Yeah.
So 21.
Yeah, something like that. And then I went straight to Penn right after.
Yeah, because you graduated master's degree there in 23.
Yes.
So when you were on the campus at Harvard, was there acting out against Jewish students?
I never noticed a lot. I keep to myself a lot, and I wasn't on campus a lot at either school. I remember people telling me that I'm very lucky I didn't choose to go to school in New York because all my friends who went to NYU or Columbia would send me pictures of swastikas that were just like on their windows or on their walls. People always told me the worst was in New York. And now if you look at it, Columbia and NYU seem to be the absolute worst, which is ironic because of the amount of Jewish people in New York City. When I was growing up, I thought Jews made up 50% of the country because that's all I knew. But I never realized it as much. At Penn, a little bit, only because I would bring up Israel on my own and I would look around and realize what was going on. I do remember, though, when I was applying after I'd gotten into Penn, they had like a Zoom for everyone that had gotten in to go in and talk to current students and see if they wanted to, take their acceptance letter and go to the school. And there was one girl who had, I think she put in her bio that she had just been to Israel or something in birthright, whatever it was. She had some connection to Israel. So I messaged her and I said, do you mind if I ask you personally, like over the phone, how is it for Jews here? Just because I wanted to know. And she said, I'll never forget it. She said, people in my class would rather find out that I was at the January 6th Capitol riot than that I support the state of Israel. So keep that in mind. So that's really all you need to know. And that, again, was a year before October 7th.
Wow. That predated.
Yeah.
Yeah. When October 7th happened, as you said, you expected to wake up to a different world than what you did. And then it seems at first there was shock and support, but it quickly seemed to falter and swing the other direction. When you see that happen and when you see people actually carrying flags at first it was maybe a thinly veiled support of Palestinians not long before the actual Hamas flags came out. Is that shocking to you? I mean, there's such an absence of critical thinking. You see people marching with banners, "Gays for Gaza."
Yeah.
And you think, really? Are you complete idiots? Has anybody ever explained to you that Israel is probably one of the most accepting, inclusive nations on the face of the earth, and you walk across the border into Gaza, they'll kill you in the first 10 feet?
Yeah. And it's it's a 5-second Google search, like you said. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe less. It's very easy to find that out. But also, these are the people that go to the Harvards and the UPenns in the world and believe that they're correct. That's the worst part. They don't want to have a discussion or debate. Not that there should be a debate, like you said, 2-second Google search. But I mean, there's people that have told me that everything I know about October 7th is a lie and no one was attacked, for example, when the footage is available online. Hamas took the footage and posted it themselves, right? I mean, I hate the fact that I had to sit there and watch it. I mean, I didn't think ever in my life I'd watch a Jewish woman have her unborn child cut out of her stomach as they killed her. And I had to sit and watch that on October 8th, 9th, whatever it was. And I have people look at me in the eye and tell me that never happened. Jews were not attacked, and we deserve everything that's come to us right now. The hostages deserve to remain there to be tortured. I mean, the things I've heard, the messages I get, I always thought that taking this job at the RNC would be where the death threats came from. But people really hate me for supporting Israel a hell of a lot more than they hate me for supporting Donald Trump, which is crazy.
I've seen it. I've seen the things that they say to Jewish citizens. I've talked to those that it never came up, and they demonstrated together against other things, standing up against and for causes. Then when it came time where the Jews were being attacked, all of those people that they demonstrated with before on whatever the cause was, all of a sudden just disappeared. And
or worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about the fact that all of those in such influential and powerful positions in Hollywood have just been struck dumb, just remained completely silent, said nothing?
Yeah. A lot of those that people think actually control the media, by the way.
Yeah.
All of which have been too scared to come out. I mean, I don't know, it's crazy to me. I remember thinking to myself when I came out and said I supported Donald Trump, I remember what I went through because I was modeling at the time, and everyone turned their phones off or blocked my number or whatever it was. And I just thought, oh, I'm doing what I think is right. But to me, that was politics. So that was scarier, and I understood it. But it's hard if you're not Jewish, but we are such a small tribe of people. And we've been through so much. When one Jew hurts, it feels like I can feel it, even though I've never met them. Like, that's my brother or my sister, because there's so few of us. And I just assumed that if you had to watch the footage that I watched, for example, you would never, ever be able to keep quiet, ever. For some reason, you weren't able to keep quiet, right? You're not Jewish.
No.
The amount of people, by the way, if I don't say thank you, I'll regret it. So thank you. The amount of people that sent me, when you started talking about it every single day, just saying, if I ever get to meet him, like, I will kiss the ground he walks on. So thank you. You've been incredible on this. And it's scary when you can do it, but fellow Jews can't, by the way. So.
Yeah, it's stunning to me.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of those people because I did my show for over 20 years out there. And I know these people. I've had lunch with these people, talked to these people, been to events with these people. And they're so outspoken on so many things. If it's something like a union issue in Hollywood or whatever, they're on the picket lines, they're out front, they're leading the charge. And then something like this happens and you can't find them with both hands. Poof.
Yeah, knowing that almost every Jew that I knew someone that was impacted.
Yeah.
Maybe not, God forbid, slaughtered on camera, but impacted in some way by October 7th. Everyone I know lost someone in some way. And yet so many people are too scared to say anything.
Yeah.
Knowing that could happen on American soil at any time.
The IDF brought me under guard protected footage that, hasn't been seen publicly, and I can't unsee it. People say, well, why don't they show that? You can't show some of that. I mean, you can't put that out there. I mean, you put that on YouTube and kids see that. It might convince some people, maybe not, but that's not something you can do. I've met with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and He may not be terribly popular in Israel on many, many things, but he's going to finish this war.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to wipe out Hamas and Hezbollah. He believes that if he doesn't, they'll wipe out Israel. He knows he has to eliminate them, and he's looked me in the eye and said, I'm going to finish this war alone or with the international community, but I am going to finish it.
Right. No, and by the way, he's not, like you said, he's not very popular. However, I don't think any other leader, if they were in power right now, would have wanted to do anything different. Like what Israelis saw on that day, doesn't matter how far right or far left you are in that country, there's nothing you want to do but eliminate that evil from the world, no matter what. And that's separate from the way people feel about Netanyahu.
Yeah, I agree. There are so many different immigrant groups in this country, and my theory has always been that a big part of the resentment towards the Jewish community is because, by and large, they're so successful because they came here and they were just head down and tail up and working so hard and have a work ethic that is just unrelenting and have made their way and worked hard and been successful. I think some people resent that success, and I think it's threatening, and I don't think that's the whole story, but I think it's a big part of it.
No, it is. And I think in general, people resent success. That's one of the fractures probably when it comes to young people right now. They resent those that are successful or have more money or whatever it is without realizing that should be inspiration for you. Yeah. In the one country in the world where you can attain anything you want with hard work, they go the opposite direction and get angry about it instead.
Yeah. You've done an awful lot to keep alive the history from the Holocaust forward. You have a site where people can go, and it's very interactive. Talk about that a little bit so people know that it's there.
Yeah, it's called Lest People Forget. Long before October 7th, this was when Kanye West, formerly one of my favorite rappers in the world, decided to tell the world that I think the Holocaust didn't happen or he loved Hitler or whatever it was that he was talking about. I was getting really gross messages, and I, in general, like to stay off social media. I just don't like it. But I remember one day just asking my husband to log me into my Twitter. I don't even have my username and password. I logged in just to see what people were saying. And the amount of people, I mean, Kanye West probably has 30 million followers across platforms, maybe more. The amount of people he was speaking to that believed him, right, that the Holocaust didn't happen, I felt like I had to do something. I remember sitting with my brother, again, the smartest person in the world, my best friend, and thinking, what can we do that's creative, that's interesting, that we can put our hearts and souls into. And he explained to me the obsession with decentralized technology and crypto that was taking over, obviously still is. And he said, what if we do something interactive where it's basically a digital Holocaust museum, but anyone anywhere in the world can actually collaborate, take part in preserving the images that I have on there. So God forbid people want to censor this information at any point in time. Anyone in the world can go on Lest People Forget, actually follow the instructions and preserve all the content we have up there on their own servers. So people around the world can take part in preserving that history and making sure no one ever forgets what happened or, God forbid, denies what happened in the Holocaust. But the worst part, I think, for me of October 7th was I, up until that point, was very invested in the museum. We had just kind of launched it, but I was always collaborating with different museums around the world and adding content to the site, and I had to go through it every single day.
Yeah.
And a lot of the images would keep me up at night, and I would just tell myself, at least I'll never have to see anything like this happen in my lifetime. And I mean, October 7th was, those images were eerily similar to what I used to look through, what's on here.
Yeah, we're looking at some of them now.
Yeah, this is like the postage stamps and things from the camps. This is survivable to look through, but there's photos on there that will haunt you in your sleep, and they're very similar to the photos from Israel on October 7th.
Yeah, you're preserving something and getting people to download it and keep it, because there is an effort to keep this off of the internet and to throttle down the distribution.
Right.
I put up a video about, maybe it was the hurricane. It got like millions of views in less than a day. And I put up a video about October 7th and, called out these demonstrators again on, it was 1 year to the day. And I don't have all that many followers, but across platforms, maybe 25, 30 million. followers across these platforms, and that video got 6,000 views
Right.
because the algorithm chokes it down and then it just disappears. And so some of our staff that deals with those things, they said, well, we're going to push it out some. And so when they sought to push it out, it came back, this is not consistent with our community values.
Right.
And so they couldn't even push it out purposely. This is not consistent with community standards or some such. So you put one out and it goes out to millions and millions of people, and one right beside it, 6,000 people out of 25 million. And these are people that signed up to see what you have to say.
Right. And it's a
you can't
current
get it to
event.
your people.
It's obviously something everyone's talking about. No, I know. It's happened to me with politics, and nothing is as bad as with anti-Semitism or anything to do with Israel. I mean, I will see the view counts just disappear.
Yeah. You've written a book called Finding My Place. Why did you do that?
So when I got thrown into politics, it happened very suddenly. Basically, I got married at Mar-a-Lago, and I didn't know anyone knew about it. And I got a call from kind of like a gossip website telling me they were running photos from my wedding. At that point, I was modeling at Wilhelmina. I was in school. I didn't want anyone to know that I even worked for Donald Trump. No one knew anything. And I basically just got thrown into the political world because I had nothing else. My modeling and my contacts were all taken from me. I got thrust into the political world in a very awkward situation. I've never really talked about it. It was basically someone who wanted to launch a group about Jewish people leaving the Democratic Party, and who kind of placed me as the face of that group. But I was 23 years old and didn't know what that would entail and what that meant. And I got into very sticky situations between the legalities of different things and the hate mail that I was getting. I mean, at one point I didn't leave my house for 3 weeks because I developed such a bad stomach ulcer from the threats that I was getting. I physically couldn't stand up. So I just did not handle it well. I didn't handle the attacks well. People printed horrible lies about me on the internet. I couldn't handle the whole thing. So I said, I need to tell my story some way. So I reached out to some publishers. I lied and said my book was done when I hadn't started, but I signed a book deal and I sat in bed. I actually got pneumonia. I sat in bed for 6 weeks with my laptop and I wrote my life story so the world would know why I've done what I've done and why I believe what I believe, and kind of at least let the truth out there so people could hear it from me. And I never really got to say thank you to my parents. I never got to explain why I love this country as much as I do and why I believe everything I believe in and where I come from. I think my parents' story is a lot cooler than mine. I think they, as individuals, are a lot more impressive than me. And I wanted to get it out there. And I was blessed to have enough of a platform that I could. So that's what I did. And it's finding my place, making my parents' American dream come true.
Yeah, you've gone at things in a different way than a lot of people. You have an anti-photo retouching campaign in your modeling career.
Yes.
You don't like people
I don't like
messing
anything
with your
right?
photos, right?
I don't like retouching. I hate social media. I don't like going viral. I'm in the wrong industry. Let me tell you, I've picked all the wrong.
Just turn her mic off. She doesn't even want to talk.
I'm gonna go. Yeah.
Do they retouch them anyway?
No, they do. But I put a lot of effort into getting that one out there, and people actually resonated. Like, people liked what I had done. But I just think the world is so messy in general, and I went through a lot as a little kid, just getting bullied for my appearance and different things. And I remember thinking to myself, after I found out my niece, I think, who's like 9 or 10, was on Instagram, and I thought, she is seeing the same images I'm seeing. That's horrible. And if I was a 10-year-old and my mom didn't even let me have Facebook till I was 18 years old. I stayed off of everything. And thank God for that. She was totally right. But I can't imagine what young people, young girls especially, are feeling. I hate social media. I wish it was banned for everyone under 18. So I thought the least I can do if I'm modeling and doing all these things that I dreamed of as a child is to show little girls that it's not actually what you think it is, and that's not really what I look like.
Yeah. I have a quote from you here. You said, I was severely bullied in middle school.
It's true.
You said this to Boca Life magazine. I was 4 foot 2 inches, had buck teeth and a crazy blonde afro. I was captain of the math team. There was definitely a bit of bullying and no one wanted to date me. Well, you've certainly gotten your revenge.
Yeah, you missed the unibrow in there. I also like to talk about that.
Too.
No, I was a nerdy little kid, and I played the violin, and I was captain of the math team, and I didn't care about looks, and I didn't have them, even if I wanted to care about them. And I think in 8th grade, I ate lunch in the bathroom every day for 6 months because people just wouldn't talk to me, and they didn't like me, and I was bullied really badly for a lot of reasons, but I guess the looks were a big part of it because kids are cruel, and they start dating and doing what they're doing in 8th grade, and I just wasn't up to par, and they let me know, and I cried almost every day. in 8th grade. But if I had had social media back then, that probably would have been 10 times worse. So that's kind of who I think about when I'm doing these modeling projects.
Well, you certainly blossomed.
I prayed a lot.
When did that happen?
So like I said, I was supposed to go to the Olympics, the 2014 Olympics. I was a competitive figure skater my whole life. So I was homeschooled. I only had like 3 or 4 friends. All of them were other 13, 14-year-old girls. I didn't go to school. I didn't really know anything. And my life was kind of taken away from me. I tore my ankle. I tore 3 ligaments, 2 tendons, snapped my Achilles. Like my skating life was over. And we were in Florida at the time training, and we ended up moving back home to New York. And I was in a giant green cast from my toes up to my thigh for about 9 months. I was virtual schooled. I had no friends. I knew nothing. And I was this little girl who just wanted to get her cast off and like get asked out on a date by a guy or like make a friend or whatever it was. And I prayed really hard. It's embarrassing to say. I actually prayed to God to just look better because that's all I wanted, because everything was taken from me and I just wanted to be a normal teenage girl. And I got my cast off. I guess your body goes through a lot of things as a young athlete, especially like a gymnast or a figure skater. So because I wasn't training, I think I gained like 50 pounds. I grew about 9 or 10 inches probably in a year. Just my body, everything changed. And I guess God was looking out. And I got discovered by Wilhelmina that summer, basically, by a photographer in Central Park. And yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah. Do you skate now?
I do, yeah. I don't talk about it as much because basically, for some reason, when I went into politics, people chose to destroy everything I loved. I am fine with people criticizing my political opinions or wanting to debate or whatever else. But people went after my looks, my skating, my family, things that actually mattered to me. And my skating was number one. The stuff that I went through in my sport, I don't wish on anyone. I love that sport. I'm like tearing up thinking about it. I love the sport more than anything in the world. But I've gone through horrible things, from physical injuries to emotional stress to abuse from coaches, everything in between. And I worked really, really hard. Before that injury, I went to state games on a broken femur and I got 3rd place. I skated on broken toes. I had a skate to the head injury. I was the toughest little girl in the world and I gave my life to my sport. And for people to try to take that away from me because they didn't like my politics, that was really difficult for me. So I promised myself I would get back on the ice, and I did. And I'm not as good as I was when I was, 15, but I do skate. Before I took this job, I skated about 5 hours a day. Now I don't have as much time, but
really,
I try to wake up at 5 a.m. and get to the rink before work when I can.
When they were attacking you and trying to hold you down then, How did they do it? Did they disguise it? Were they overt about it? Did they say why they were doing it, or were they just disguising it as criticism, not motivated by politics?
Yeah. I mean, I remember there was one piece in The Forward, which is a Jewish piece. And for some reason, it hurts more like when your own attack you. But it made fun of me for supporting Donald Trump, which, again, fine. I expected it. But I think one reporter actually said they reached out to one of my coaches who said, I never had a chance. I'm going to the Olympics. None of my coaches speak English. I have no idea who they could have reached out to. I don't know if they're lying or pretending or what it was, but no one would have ever said that. And you can debate me all day long. I don't care. It's perfectly fine. But to take away the one thing that I gave my entire life to, knowing that I maybe aren't able to ever, I won't ever be able to prove them wrong because I was injured for so long and I don't know if I can get back those triple jumps and show them that I actually was good. That really, truly broke me.
Yeah. What do you say to yourself about it now?
I cry a lot.
It still gets to you.
Oh, yeah. I think that's why I work so hard and everything else. I'm trying to replace the one dream I never made possible.
Yeah. What do you focus on now? If you can't do that, what do you do to replace that? What is your dream?
Dream is probably the wrong word. It's almost like when I fell in love with my husband, I realized every guy I dated before him wasn't love. It's kind of like that. Nothing is ever going to be a dream like that. Like when I discovered figure skating, I was like an 11-year-old girl who I printed the pictures of my favorite skater. I put them on every wall in my house. I didn't sleep. I worked out in the gym 10 hours a day. I would sneak out of my house to run Central Park at night without my parents knowing. I wanted to go to the Olympics more than I wanted anything in the world. So I don't think anything will compare. It's the first time I've gotten emotional since I started politics. Thank you.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
I will say, if you make your parents proud, then I know that I'm fine. And they seem to be pretty proud of me right now. So I'm okay. But I wouldn't say I'll ever have, it's different. Dreaming versus just doing something really, really cool. Sitting with you is incredible. Being in the White House is incredible. Being on television is cool. Meeting a former, hopefully future president of the United States who I talk to a lot. Very cool. But it's never going to be a little girl with a dream,
Well, that's kind of a pessimistic view. You don't seem like a pessimist, but then to have that view, that's kind of a pessimistic point of view. To say there will never be anything that will measure up to what you have.
He says the girl who's sitting with Dr. Phil. No, I mean, my life is so cool to so many people. And I don't want to dismiss that because I think every day is a privilege, to get to sit on television. My parents came here with $90 each, right? They didn't have anything. And one generation later, here I am, right? I'm speaking at Madison Square Garden before Donald Trump in a few days. I am living a dream and I am more than grateful for it. I don't know if I'll ever feel the same way as when a little girl falls in love with it's just it's special. Mm-hmm. Also, I'm yelled at all the time and people are mean and the world's a lot harder when you're an adult versus a 10-year-old girl who wants to go to the Olympics. So
yeah.
I don't know. I don't think anything will compare, but that's okay because a lot of people don't ever get to experience that kind of love to begin with.
Yeah. Well, you can be thankful for having what you did have.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Who knows? You may have a 10-year-old daughter that you're coaching up to be a figure skater. And trust me, I was an athlete all my life and I never had as much anxiety or joy as when my boys became athletes and I was watching them instead of doing it myself.
Right. I fear they're not. My mom is a very, very famous concert pianist. And my whole life I played violin. My brother played cello. That's all she wanted, obviously. And it did not work out at all. And we both became athletes. I fear it's going to be the same thing. My daughter's going to pick up the violin or something and I won't be involved.
And you know what? That'll be wonderful.
As long as she's happy.
Yeah,
happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you see her doing whatever she does or him doing whatever he does, you'll be thrilled to death. Is America going to be saved? Do you think this election's going to go the way you want it to?
I do think so. I like I said, I travel across the country all the time. You probably, the same. You meet people from everywhere. I do feel very similarly to how I felt in 2016. It's a nice feeling to, go around and meet people who are hopeful, right? People who are optimistic, people who believe in this country and love this country so much. I meet people who, served and gave everything for this country, risked it all for this country, parents who lost their kids fighting for this country. That's to meet those people and know what they've gone through and that they still believe and still have faith. That's who I work for every single day. But that's why I think America's going to be okay.
Well, as one of immigrant parents, talk to me about immigration.
It's tough because people ask me, they assume that because my parents were immigrants, I'm going to have a very different response or viewpoint than I do. It's weird that people think that my parents came here legally. They risked everything. My dad lost nearly everything. He lost his father when he came here. He didn't know if he'd ever see him again. Basically said goodbye to his father because the people don't understand in America. But in the Soviet Union, you don't get to just leave, right? My grandmother and my dad escaped, but my grandfather was a very prominent lawyer, and they didn't let him out. And my dad said goodbye to him, not knowing if he'd ever see him again. He ended up dying from his third heart attack, I think a few years later, and only after the Soviet Union collapsed and my dad went back and found the KGB file on his family, did he learn how many times that his dad desperately tried to get out to see his son, to meet anywhere in a neutral country so he could do that, and they didn't let him. And it's probably why he had his third heart attack at 57 and isn't here right now. Knowing what my parents went through to come here the right way, it's very difficult for me to not support everyone going through, hell and back to get here because we have to be a nation of laws first, obviously. And if my parents had to do it, everyone should have to do it. At the same time, people around the world are suffering, right? People go through so much every single day that majority, I think, of people in America don't understand. And I fully admit to that. And I know how many people are out there that need our help. The problem for me is, driving to the airport this morning. Before I came here, there was a homeless veteran on the road who I give money to every single day when I see him. Until we have every veteran in a home, I don't know how much we can help other people that aren't Americans, right? That's the problem. I want to help everyone, and I get it. I get those who disagree with me politically, who just want to help everyone, who actually believe that for the right reasons. But until every child has a meal and a bed, and every veteran has a meal and a bed, it's hard to justify helping anyone else.
That's a very Democrat point of view, by the way.
Is it? I don't know.
I think it is.
Maybe. I don't like labels. It's just an American point of view. I want everyone to be happy. I want everyone to be okay. I get why people want to come here, and I'm not going to deny that people go through hardships and that life is better in America. But I think until every American is okay, I don't know if we can help people. I think
What
that's
year did your
fair.
parents come here?
My mom came in 74. My dad came in 80.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If they hadn't come here, where would you be in your life right now, do you think?
Well, they came separately.
Right.
My mom was 10. My dad was 20 or 21. So they wouldn't have met and I wouldn't be here. But let's say they would have met somewhere. I mean, I can't imagine. My parents actually lived in England for a few years, and I always make jokes that I would have never forgiven them if they had me over there. I don't know. It's like weird. I feel being American like in my bones. Like I can't imagine being anything else. Like people make fun of my brother and I for how American we feel and how patriotic we are. But I don't know. I don't like leaving the country. I don't like anything that's not American. It's like who I am. I can just feel it. My grandmother talks to me about how back when she was in the Soviet Union, she felt American and like she had to escape because she felt it in her bones and her blood. And I don't know, that's all I know. I can't imagine anything else.
That's what I thought you would probably say, even though it's hard to say, well, if they hadn't come here, they wouldn't have met and they would have been there and they may have not met. But it's understandable why people want to get in this country.
100%.
Why the border is such a destination for people, why they want so badly to get into America by hook or crook, any way they can. It kills me to hear people apologize for America, to apologize for us being successful, to apologize for policies. This isn't a perfect country. Absolutely not. I wrote a book entitled We've Got Issues. We do have it. We've got huge issues. We need to work on them. But I still think this is a great country, flaws, fallacies, and all. It's a great country. And if you got a hill to climb, I'd rather climb it here than somewhere else. I mean, whether you start out on third base, dugout, or dumpster, I'd rather start here than any other country. And there are some great countries in the world. I'm not saying this is the only place in the world.
I wouldn't even say that.
Well, there are. I mean, Sweden's got some great things going for them. And there are places that have, great healthcare systems. There are places that have, a lot of good things. But if I've got to dig myself out, I'd rather dig it out in America than somewhere else. There's no question about it. And I get why so many people around this world are trying to get to America. I'm a big proponent of immigration. I just think that it needs to be controlled. And I think of America as my home the same way I think about the house I live in. That's my home. And I wouldn't let people in my front door if I didn't know who they were.
Right.
And I think of America as my home. I wouldn't let people in that door if I don't know who they are.
Or even if you do, but your son in the house needs you more right now.
Yeah, that's right. I think a big part of the problem with illegal immigration, I think we have to own some of that problem. We have a broken immigration system. When it takes 7 years to get a hearing, you got a broken immigration system. We need to make it faster for people to get an opportunity to get a hearing. And they're talking about 86,000 new IRS agents. How about let's not do that? How about let's have 86,000 new immigration agents that can process these cases and decide who should get in and who shouldn't get in?
Yeah.
That would make more sense to me than somebody chasing me around from the IRS.
Right. Or agents at the border, making sure that only the best can come here and not those that want to harm Americans, of course.
Exactly. And I've been to the border. I've met with those agents down there. They are some of the hardest working, most dedicated, loyal Americans in the country. And the media talks about it like, the state of Texas is squaring off with the feds down there in the park. They're down there sharing lunch. They're not fighting each other down there. They're down there working together, trying to figure this out.
Right. Well, someone has to, right? Someone has to figure it out, or otherwise everyone suffers.
And they do. They work together. They're figuring out. But I understand why people want to come here, and we need them to come here. We have a birth rate of 1.6. We need 2.1 at least to sustain our infrastructure. We need immigrants in this country, but they need to register, and they need to be paying taxes, and they need to be contributing in every way. And a lot of them do. And I think most of the people that come across the border are probably people looking for a better life. A small percentage of them are criminals and gang members and drug mules and sex traffickers. But when you've got millions coming across, a small percentage is a lot.
Yeah,
of
especially
bad
when
people.
that small percentage does anything to harm even one American. You have
That's
a
right.
real problem. Yeah.
And a small percentage of a big number is
Right.
a lot of people, real number-wise.
Right.
You're
And
talking about hundreds
they're not
of
like
thousands.
bad people. They're like evil people that
Oh,
want to
my
cause
gosh.
the kind of harm that we can never allow. So
Yeah.
no.
I was in Arizona recently in Cochise County and Pinal County, and they've got Smuggler's Highway there. Some of these people are trying to walk across 50, 60 miles of rugged desert carrying a 50-pound backpack of fentanyl tablets.
Yeah.
And they fall behind. They just leave them.
Yeah.
They find them out there dead with, and these aren't backpacks that you get at the mall.
No.
These are burlap bags with sticks in them, rubbing their backs raw. I mean, it's a terrible situation.
Yeah, for everyone.
It's a terrible situation. It's got to be fixed, and I certainly hope it gets fixed.
I agree.
I hope it gets fixed. What do you think is the most important things that need to change in this country after the election? What would you put on the priority list?
Politically or like personally?
As an American, as you
Right.
look at it, you're 29 years old, you're married.
Yes.
I assume you will start a family at some point. What's on your list?
I want people to talk again. It's that simple. I am so sick of the division over weird labels that don't mean anything. Like you said, this is a little Republican, that's a little Democratic. These are made up words that don't matter, right? And I think the amount of division, how much people hate each other, what I've seen these last 8 years, the messages, like I said, that I get, this just doesn't need to happen. This is what's breaking our country. We're going to break from within before we're going to break from an outside enemy. That's the real problem. And I'm genuinely scared of what happens after the election, regardless of who wins. I think Donald Trump is going to win. I think the response, no matter who wins, I don't think we're going to go in a good direction. People are going to get very angry and hate their neighbor who voted the other way more than they do already.
Let me ask you a question that is maybe going to seem strange. I'm asking this question for our viewers and listeners right now. You've had so much hate mail, so many messages that you cannot in good taste repeat now, right? People that have wished things on you, told you to do things, wished people to do things to you, that have just been hating on you. You know you. I know you a little bit sitting here with you. LaFern, you know her.
I'm okay.
Bill,
Right?
you know her. Is there any way that you, when you're sitting alone, can make sense out of the fact that you are such a hateful person that you deserve any of that kind of rhetoric, that kind of vitriol? What do you say to yourself about what's gone so wrong that someone like you would draw so much venom and hatred from people?
It's a deep question. Number one, I don't think people like successful people. And I don't want to consider myself successful, but 1 ounce of success and you start losing friends and you realize just how much people actually dislike it when you're closer to making it in the world. I think that's one piece of it. Just people don't like people doing well. They think it's easier to bring people down than to work up to their level or a higher level. I've lost friends and family who agree with me politically, don't hate me really for anything, but just don't want to be around watching me succeed in any way. So that's number one. People don't like when people are successful. I think social media is the biggest problem, especially for young people. I think people forgot, A, how to have conversations. B, too many people think that their opinion matters. And people ask me all the time, why don't you tweet? And I say, because it's irrelevant. Two sentences I can come up with to get a couple of likes is irrelevant. I don't want to go viral on Twitter. It doesn't mean anything. Social media is not a real place. I don't care. I'm honored when I'm asked to go on TV. I'm honored to sit here with you. And if people want to hear from me, they'll find me somehow. I don't think my opinion is worth that much that I should be out there tweeting or commenting. I don't think I've commented on anything on social media in my life. I've never put out a tweet. I've tweeted maybe 10 times total. I don't care. Too many people think that their opinion really matters. Too many people think that debating on social media really matters. Too many people think that owning someone, proving them wrong publicly really matters. Too many people think that hurting other people makes them better. I just think people stopped working on themselves and started tearing down others. And again, this is aside from politics. I know why I'm hated in politics, but that's a whole other conversation. But I just think people are broken. I really do. And I've been broken. Yeah, I've had really difficult few years and I did horrible things to myself and I had horrible thoughts and I get it. And I chose to tear down myself instead of others, but I still did stupid things. So I understand what it means to be broken. I just think our society encourages people to be at their lowest point instead of encouraging people to try to succeed, which is the only thing that makes people happy is they feel good about themselves.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more about that. I mean, 23% of adults use Twitter and 80% of the content is posted by 10% of the users.
Right.
So think about it. 23% of adults use it and 10% of that 23%,
right.
So that's 2.3%, put up 80% of the content.
Right.
That is a really small number of people
right.
putting up the vast amount of the content.
Right. And they're the loudest in the room, so everyone think that that's the majority of, but it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's a small group of broken people.
But yet they're the most shrill.
Yeah.
And, one of the things I say, and we've got issues, I talk about 10 things we have to embrace to be a healthy society. And one of them is you can't pay the most attention to the loudest voice.
Yeah.
You can't surrender to that. And when someone like you who has worked hard and achieved and had feelings and worked, so hard, 10 hours a day, skating 5 hours before you even get up and go somewhere. You've gone to the number one academic school in the country and then gone to another and worked hard and achieved. And you're the target of all this horrible vitriol just because of a political choice and the fact that you are a Jew, tells me that we have a lot of broken people in this country.
Yeah.
A lot of people that have just lost their way.
Right. And they're genuinely suffering because if you look at some of these comments, you have to be not mean. You have to be genuinely broken deep down to waste the time to say something that cruel to a stranger. These are not mean people. These are actually broken people that need our help.
Yeah. Even if you're just like checking out at a grocery store and somebody's really rude, I always say, if you're getting anger for somebody, it's just an outward expression of hurt, fear, or frustration.
Yeah.
And if you look past the outward, instead of just saying, what a mean, angry, rude person, and ask yourself instead, what is the hurt in that person? What is the fear in that person? What's the frustration in that person? You see them in a completely different light. Instead of saying, boy, what an angry person, you say, boy, that person must really be in pain.
Yeah.
Because if you could unscrew the top of their head and look in, it'd probably scare you to death. They're either really in pain or they're scared to death or they're so frustrated that they can't get out of where they are. Then you see them a lot different. It doesn't make what they do any less hurtful,
right.
But at least you maybe understand and don't take it on so much, because how people treat you says so much more about them than it does about you.
Yeah.
We sometimes lose sight of that.
Definitely. And I remember I've had this discussion with my husband a lot. But like I always say, I was extremely privileged to have the family that I have. And anytime I went through something horrible, I didn't turn to drugs or whatever horrible things or being rude to other people, because I got to cry on my mom's shoulder or, lay on my dad and cry, whatever it was, or my brother. It was always like, I always had that. And so for me, I will never understand what it means to not have that. So my lived experience allowed me to be okay, but someone else's might not. And though they hurt me in profound ways very often, their life might be one that I just will never understand, and their experience might be something I'll never understand. And with that, I just wish things were better in our country and things were easier for people so they didn't have to turn to that, because I didn't have to turn to a lot of horrible things in my life, because truly I was just so lucky with the parents that I got and the upbringing that I got. But people certainly have had it. I've suffered in my own way. So people have had it much harder than me. And I understand that. And I wish more people understood that a lot of people just have it really hard, at least at that point in their lives, and need some help.
Yeah, I think this kind of conversation is really important, because if there are people out there right now that, to wade into politics for a minute, if there are people out there that are confused because the Republican side are spinning all their messages out, and the Democrat, they're spinning all their messages out, I think this is a valuable conversation, because it gives people the opportunity. I mean, for God's sakes, you're the spokesperson for the Republican National Committee.
Yeah.
It gives somebody an opportunity to say, who is this woman?
Right. I just teared up talking about figure skating. Like, I am human.
Yeah, you're a human being. I think if people stop and think, well, wait a minute, is this some evil witch that doesn't care about people, or is this somebody that has the same thoughts, feelings, fears, needs, wants, desires that I do? It's like when I teach negotiation sometimes. I do it with law enforcement and all kinds of groups. And I always say, if we're going to negotiate something, the first thing I always like to do is say, let's start with making a list of everything we agree on. We can talk about all things we disagree on in a minute, but before we do, let's talk about everything we agree on. I think if people would do that, if the two sides would sit down and say, let's talk about the things we want, that we can agree that we want in this country, I think the differences would be there, but I really believe they would be a lot less than people might think.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think even when you got down to the differences might be in methodology, how we go about getting them, even as much as wanting different things. Everybody wants a healthy country. Everybody wants safety. Everybody wants affordability.
Yeah.
Everybody wants security. Everybody wants a good environment. Everybody wants clean water. Can you think of something that everybody doesn't want? Everybody wants the same things. It's just that now we're talking about how do we get them? There might be some differences there, but I think even there, it's just a matter of methodology, and then you get down to just what are the facts. Does this work or does that work? Let's do what works. Let's agree on what we want and take the best approach for now.
Right.
And I really think people have gotten to the point where, like you said, it's just, if there's a label, I have to hate you.
Right.
And that's just not true. I got grandkids. I want them to grow up with green grass and clean water and a healthy economy and feeling safe and secure. Doesn't everybody want that?
Right. And I assume that matters to you a lot more than how they vote.
I could care less. What I care about is that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when they have children, that they have a park to play in, they have money to buy food, they have food to buy, they have, an ocean to go sail in, whatever. Yeah. I want the same things I think everybody else wants.
Yeah, and I was young, so I don't totally remember it, but I think that's what life was before Donald Trump ran and the world turned upside down. I remember my parents, they had debates with their friends all the time, and it was like, we vote this way and they vote this way, but we both want the best for you. We just think that this path is better or that path. And I don't know why Donald Trump made people as angry as he did, but that's when the rhetoric went up. That's when the hate speech went up. That's when they went after not just the candidate, but his supporters, which I think is very dirty and un-American. And I don't know the way back. That's the problem.
You know, I think one of the most significant days in this country's history was 9/12 of 2001.
Yeah.
Because on the morning after 9/11, we were all Americans.
Yeah.
There weren't any political parties. We were just all Americans. And I hate that it took something like that to remind us that we're all in this together.
Right.
And I hope it doesn't take something like that to remind us again that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
I hope we can just decide.
I fear something like that will happen and we still won't realize we're together. I thought during COVID, people would realize. I thought after Donald Trump nearly lost his life, people would think about it and realize. I thought October 7th, like we talked about. I don't know. It feels almost like it's just too far gone for people to realize everyone here is a human that wants the best for their family. Donald Trump is not Hitler. He's just a guy you disagree with politically. Kamala Harris might be a woman you disagree with politically, and her supporters are just people you disagree with. That's it. And I hope to God, no matter who wins, it goes back to normal. And I hope people give the president a chance, whoever it is. I do think it's going to be Donald Trump, and I'm scared of the response, but I hope they give him a chance, and his supporters and his staff, and we close this chapter because it is unnecessary.
Whoever wins this election will be my president.
Right.
And I will support whoever wins this election. They will be my president, and I will give them my support, and I will be behind him 100%.
Yeah, as we should.
As we should. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. It was a great conversation, and I certainly think everybody will enjoy it and
I hope so.
Listen to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Hey moms, looking for some lighthearted guidance on this crazy journey we call parenting?
Join me, Sabrina Kohlberg,
And me, Andy Mitchell, for Pop Culture Moms,
where each week we talk about what we're watching
and examine our favorite pop culture moms up close to try to pick up some parenting hacks along the way.
Come laugh, learn, and grow with us as we look for the best tips.
And maybe a few what not to do's from our favorite fictional moms.
From Good Morning America and ABC Audio.
Pop Culture Moms. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.